Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something we have all experienced: anger. That fiery emotion that rushes through us when we feel wronged, frustrated, or unheard. Anger is powerful. It can fuel action, ignite change, and demand justice. But if left unchecked, anger does something far more dangerous. It kills wisdom. Anger is a powerful emotion that can quickly take control of our thoughts and actions. When we are angry, our ability to think clearly diminishes and our judgment becomes clouded. This happens because anger triggers an intense emotional response in the brain, particularly in the amygdala, the part responsible for processing emotions. When the amygdala is overstimulated, it overrides the prefrontal cortex, which is the center of rational thinking and decision-making. As a result, we react impulsively, often without considering the long-term consequences of our words and actions. In moments of anger, we tend to see situations in extremes. A minor disagreement can feel like a major betrayal, and a simple mistake can appear intentional. This distorted perception prevents us from seeing the full picture, making it difficult to make fair and balanced decisions. We may jump to conclusions, assume the worst about others, and act based on incomplete information. Such reactions can lead to unnecessary conflicts, broken relationships, and missed opportunities. Consider a workplace scenario where an employee feels undervalued. If they allow their anger to take over, they might lash out at their boss, quit impulsively, or say something unprofessional. However, if they took the time to calm down and assess the situation rationally, they might realize that their frustration could be addressed through a respectful conversation or a strategic career move. The difference between the two outcomes lies in the ability to manage emotions before acting on them. In personal relationships, anger can make people say things they don't truly mean. Hurtful words spoken in a moment of rage can leave lasting scars, even if apologies follow. The ability to pause, reflect, and respond thoughtfully is what separates wisdom from emotional impulsivity. To prevent anger from clouding judgment, it is essential to practice self-awareness and emotional regulation. Taking deep breaths, stepping away from the situation, and considering different perspectives can help restore clarity. By doing so, we allow wisdom to guide our actions, ensuring that our choices are not dictated by temporary emotions, but by thoughtful consideration of what is truly best. Sure thing, here's an expansion. When anger takes hold, our actions are often driven by the intense emotions surging through us, rather than careful consideration of the consequences. This leads to impulsive reactions that can cause significant damage to our relationships, reputation, and overall well-being. The immediate urge to lash out, retaliate, or express frustration without restraint often overrides our usual restraint and empathy. We might say hurtful things we don't mean, or make hasty decisions that we later regret. In personal relationships, for example, anger can transform a minor disagreement into a major conflict. Words spoken in anger are usually harsher and more hurtful than intended, striking at the core of someone's insecurities or fears. Even after the anger has subsided, the sting of those words lingers, creating rifts that are hard to mend. The trust and safety within the relationship can be eroded, making open communication and reconciliation more challenging. In professional settings, acting on anger can be equally destructive. An employee who reacts angrily to criticism might argue with their supervisor, jeopardizing their professional relationships and career advancement. An impulsive email sent in anger can damage professional reputations and strain collaborations. Such reactions not only affect immediate relationships, but can also lead to long-term consequences, like job loss or missed opportunities for growth and development. Beyond the personal and professional spheres, anger-fueled actions can have broader social implications. On a community or societal level, collective anger can lead to unrest, violence, and the breakdown of social harmony. History is replete with examples where entire communities suffered because of decisions made in anger without thoughtful deliberation. The antidote to this destructive cycle is learning to pause. Taking a moment to step back from the immediate situation allows our intense emotional response to subside, giving space for rational thought to re-enter the picture. Techniques such as deep breathing, counting to 10, or taking a brief walk can be incredibly effective in managing our initial reactions. When we respond from a place of calm rather than anger, our actions are more likely to be constructive, fostering understanding and connection rather than conflict and division. How's that? Anything you'd like to adjust or add? Wisdom is not something that comes in moments of haste or emotional turmoil. It requires patience, reflection, and a willingness to see beyond the immediate situation. However, anger is the opposite. It demands an instant reaction. It pushes us to act before we think, to respond before we understand. When we allow anger to take control, we sacrifice the patience needed for wisdom to guide our decisions. Patience allows us to step back and assess a situation from multiple perspectives. It helps us recognize that what we perceive in the heat of the moment may not be the full truth. For example, if a friend cancels plans at the last minute, our immediate reaction might be anger and frustration. We might assume they don't value our time or that they are being inconsiderate. But with patience, we take the time to ask why. Perhaps they had an emergency, felt overwhelmed, or simply needed rest. By giving space to understand rather than jumping to conclusions, we prevent unnecessary conflict and maintain stronger relationships. In professional settings, patience is equally crucial. A leader who reacts angrily to an employee's mistake might demoralize their team, causing fear rather than growth. However, a wise leader who takes time to assess the situation and provide constructive feedback fosters learning and improvement. Similarly, an entrepreneur who allows anger to drive business decisions may take risks out of frustration or revenge rather than making thoughtful choices that ensure long-term success. Anger blinds us to possibilities. It makes us see only what is wrong rather than what can be learned or fixed. Patience, on the other hand, invites reflection. It allows us to separate our emotions from the facts, leading to decisions that are rational and beneficial. It reminds us that not everything requires an immediate response, and sometimes the best action is no action at all, at least not until we have fully understood the situation. By choosing patience over anger, we open the door to wisdom. We give ourselves the opportunity to respond in ways that build trust, create solutions, and lead to positive outcomes. In doing so, we ensure that wisdom, not anger, guides our lives. Effective communication is the foundation of strong relationships, whether personal, professional, or social. It relies on clarity, understanding, and the ability to both express and listen. However, when anger takes over, communication suffers. Instead of engaging in meaningful dialogue, anger fuels arguments, accusations, and misunderstandings. It shifts the focus from solving problems to winning battles, turning conversations into confrontations. When we are angry, our words often become sharp, aggressive, and defensive. We may interrupt others, raise our voices, or refuse to listen altogether. This breakdown in communication makes it difficult to resolve conflicts, as anger creates an emotional barrier that prevents us from truly hearing what the other person is saying. Even if the other person is trying to explain, apologize, or offer a solution, anger blinds us to their words, making resolution nearly impossible. Consider an argument between two friends. One feels hurt and expresses their frustration, but instead of listening and trying to understand, the other responds angrily, accusing them of overreacting. The conversation escalates into a shouting match, and instead of resolving the issue, both walk away feeling unheard and resentful. Had they controlled their anger and communicated calmly, they could have reached a mutual understanding and strengthened their friendship. In professional settings, anger can be particularly destructive. An employee reacts with anger to feedback may seem defensive or unwilling to improve. A manager who criticizes their team in frustration creates a toxic work environment where employees feel disrespected and demotivated. In negotiations, anger can shut down discussions, preventing productive compromises. The key to overcoming this challenge is emotional awareness and controls. When anger begins to rise, it is crucial to take a step back and breathe before responding. Practicing active listening, focusing on understanding rather than reacting, helps de-escalate tension and keeps the conversation productive. Using I statements instead of accusations, such as "I feel hurt" instead of "you always do this," also promotes healthier communication. Ultimately, anger blocks effective communication, but wisdom restores it. By choosing patience, self-control, and empathy, we can turn conflicts into opportunities for deeper understanding and stronger relationships. Anger is a natural human emotion, but how we handle it determines whether it controls us or we control it. While anger often arises instinctively in response to frustration, injustice, or disappointment, wisdom is a conscious choice. Unlike anger, which is reactive, wisdom requires intentional effort to pause, reflect, and respond thoughtfully. Those who allow anger to dictate their actions often find themselves regretting their words and decisions, while those who choose wisdom navigate conflicts with maturity and clarity. When anger takes over, it pushes us toward impulsive actions. We might lash out, say things we don't mean, or make decisions that harm relationships and opportunities. This is because anger clouds rational thinking, making us focus only on the immediate emotional response rather than long-term consequences. On the other hand, wisdom encourages us to step back and assess the situation before reacting. It allows us to consider multiple perspectives, recognize our emotions without being ruled by them, and respond in a way that leads to positive outcomes. For example, imagine a disagreement at work where a colleague takes credit for your idea. The instinctive reaction might be to confront them angrily, causing tension and possibly damaging your professional reputation. However, a wise approach would be to remain calm, gather your thoughts, and address the issue assertively but respectfully. This way, you maintain your professionalism while standing up for yourself effectively. In personal relationships, the ability to control anger and choose wisdom is even more crucial. An argument with a loved one can escalate quickly if anger dominates, leading to hurtful words and resentment. But by practicing self-control, taking a moment to breathe, and choosing words carefully, conflicts can be resolved in a way that strengthens the relationship rather than harming it. Wisdom is not about suppressing anger, but about managing it. It means recognizing when anger arises, understanding its cause, and choosing a response that aligns with our values and long-term well-being. By choosing wisdom over anger, we not only prevent unnecessary conflict and regret, but also cultivate healthier relationships, better decision-making, and a more peaceful mindset. In moments of anger, our first instinct is often to react immediately. We feel a surge of emotion and want to express our frustration, defend ourselves, or retaliate. However, this immediate reaction is rarely the best one. A simple pause, a few seconds of restraint, can mean the difference between a decision we regret and a response we are proud of. Taking a moment to breathe and think before reacting allows wisdom to take control instead of anger. When we are angry, our brain enters a fight or fight mode, making it difficult to think clearly. We focus only on the problem at hand, not on possible solutions. This is why people often say things in anger that they later regret. A brief pause allows emotions to settle, giving us time to process the situation rationally rather than emotionally. It helps us consider, is my reaction going to solve the issue, or will it make things worse? Imagine a heated argument with a close friend or family member. In the heat of the moment, it is tempting to say hurtful things to win the argument. But if we pause, we give ourselves a chance to reflect on what we truly want. Do we want to hurt the other person, or do we want to resolve the conflict? A short moment of silence before responding can prevent unnecessary damage to the relationship. In professional settings, this principle is just as important. Suppose a manager gives harsh feedback on your work, and your first reaction is anger and defensiveness. If you immediately respond with frustration, it could damage your professional reputation. But if you pause, breathe, and respond calmly, you can turn the conversation into a learning opportunity instead of a confrontation. Pausing before reacting does not mean suppressing anger or avoiding confrontation. It simply means allowing yourself the space to respond with clarity and wisdom. Whether it's counting to 10, taking a deep breath, or walking away for a moment, this small act of self-control can prevent regret, maintain relationships, and lead to better decision-making. A pause may seem small, but its impact is powerful. It allows wisdom to take the lead instead of anger.